all, happy Friday. Today we have Debbie Harris with us as our guest. She's an author, a coach, a speaker. It doesn't end here. A hypnotist and a small business owner focused on wellness for women, specifically on weight loss.
Yes.
So all kinds of titles, all kinds of excitement. Welcome, Debbie. And what is on your mind?
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. What is on my mind today is that I am in the very final edit of my book. That is quite the journey, quite the process. So, yes.
Yeah, so Jeff, go ahead. You're the one with the book.
Yeah.
I love authors. So is this your first book?
This is my first book that I always knew I would write, but never knew what I would write about.
What was it? How did you decide what you were going to write about?
My personal experience with the whole weight, menopause. I dieted all my life. You know, the fat kid in school, the ridicule, one day I just said, you know something, I want women to understand there is a way out of this insanity. So this is what I'm going to write about. This
is special because not every kid who was ridiculed and not every kid who was overweight and whatnot does that. Well, there's something in you that otherwise we all will be fixed, right? Something in you actually kind of made you act. What was it?
Well, I love to write. I always have. So, and I meant what I said. I always used to imagine, you know, myself on the back of a book in the airport when you go through the Hudson News and there's all those books. But I really, years ago, I met with a book coach, and after 45 minutes on the phone with me, she said, "You have 7 books in you. Can you pick one?" And at that time, I clearly wasn't passionate enough about anything to do that. This was a real cathartic experience for me. This really had helped me work through many, many things I hadn't worked through, along with the passion to know that there really is an answer. And women, I mean, I know how frustrating it is. But when you get to that menopause, you're just like ready to pull your hair out of your head. I mean, there's so many things going on, and the weight is just one more thing, and now it will not come off. So I was compelled to just sit down and start writing. And then it took a while. It took 1.5 years or 2 years, but then it just all started to kind of flow.
So you have a business that you've built around this as well? Is that right?
Yes.
That's
yes.
Right.
I actually became a licensee for another weight loss company. And then from that research, it helped about 400 to 500 people, men and women. And from that, I said, you know something, there's something missing with this program. And I'm going to go back to school. So actually at 63, I went back to become an integrative nutrition health coach and started getting my hands and reading. And plus I had dieted all my life. So, you know, you kind of know it intellectually, but all of a sudden nothing's working. And I put a program together, and this is nothing new. I mean, we've known about hormones and weight gain, and it's just, I really wanted to put it all down in a formula that I felt that a woman could follow. And along with that, I'm building a resource center so that you could become a member, and there's going to be a ton of supportive material on there.
So I have a question on that, Debbie. If you think about it, subject of weight in this society is a very painful subject, right? Even though it is all over, but it's very painful. Subject of menopause is near taboo. So you are between the rock and a hard spot with your business. How do you navigate and find your positioning and find your persona and find your message?
I think, Elena, first of all, I agree, but I think the subject is becoming a little bit more acceptable. Women are talking about it more. Now, we're not talking about all of it, and my next book is going to highlight a different area of it. But I think we are talking about it more. I think the medical profession is still way behind. Judging from what my clients would tell me, they weren't getting answers there. There's issues with maybe surgery being suggested a little bit too frequently in some places. But I just, you know what? I just wrote it. I have no idea. You know, I'm like, people need to know this. People need to know two things for me. One, you can do this without drugs if you choose to. That's number one. And number two, you don't have to give up the foods that you love. You don't have to give up the pizza, the ice cream, the chocolate. You have to learn how to have it. So, because this whole idea of, well, you can never have that is like, what happens if you tell a 2-year-old or a teenager they can never do something? I mean, you know, so yeah.
So many thoughts in my head, because you're in a different sort of part of this world than I am. But I've been doing a lot of coaching recently. I wrote a book, whatever, and it's fascinating to sort of hear you talk about. The first thing I will say is absolutely, like, I wrote my book about middle management, but I always tell people, like, this was me working through my corporate PTSD. So I totally hear you on that. Like sort of like book writing is this sort of like working through your sort of own stresses and mental health challenges, whatever it is.
That's right.
But I also think it's really interesting. You talked a little bit just now about this idea of like you have to get people have to sort of change their mindset, and you mentioned this idea of you can't tell a teenager like what to do, and that whole sort of coaching idea of like if you can't motivate people by telling them what to do, you have to motivate them by getting them to sort of come up with it themselves. So I'm guessing that probably plays into the work you do, but interested in your thoughts on that.
You're absolutely right, Jeff. And one of the biggest things that I talk about with clients, and that is in the book, is finding your why. And it changes, even from the start of a diet. Well, I want to get into this dress for so-and-so's party. Right. And then as you go on, it's, well, I really want to be able to be healthy and be able to travel, and whatever it is, but you have to get to what is motivating that person. It isn't going to be my motivation, and it may not be, it's, people, well, my doctor told me I should lose weight. Well, that rarely works unless the person can internalize a why based on perhaps that suggestion. So, and I totally agree with you, because I worked through a lot of early childhood PTSD by writing the book. So, yeah.
I have a question about, so you talked about, obviously, I have not experienced menopause, but I have experienced, as I went through my 40s and now my early 50s, like I have experienced a vast change in metabolism, grabbing an entire family-sized bag of Lay's potato chips and just chowing down on it used to be actually something I could do and not have that represent gaining pounds and pounds. Now it's like eating a snack at night, eating cereal at night leads to multiple pounds, not coming off for the next week or whatever. Can you talk about like I just want to hear your thoughts on like aging and dieting, and there must be, it doesn't usually get talked about, I don't think, in terms of aging, but it's definitely different, right?
Well, hormones play a big factor. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Also, what is it that you're doing? Probably when you were younger, you were more active. I mean, that's probably the case. It's a combination of those things, whether it's men or women. And a lot of that fat ends up going around the middle. And one of the hormones that plays a big factor is cortisol. So And because cortisol is our stress hormone, our fight or flight hormone, if you will, would you say that anyone is under stress these days, just in general?
Everyone, yeah.
Everyone, right.
A lot.
So besides the stress of the world, which, you know, whatever, you have environmental stresses. You have, you know, the chemicals and things that we eat. You have family stress. You have work stress. You have hormone stress. And this all tends to keep our cortisol at a pretty high level, which tends to store fat. So, and again, you're probably not as active as you were when you were younger. So it all adds together.
So it's interesting though that you say that, because I know this year has not been great, but like Eric gives me a hard time because for about 3 years in a row up to the last year or so, where I had some issues with my shoulder and so forth, whatever it stopped me, I was running 1,000 miles a year, which is not bad, you know.
And I was running 0 miles a year.
He like point out that he's like, I'm actually thinner than you and whatever. So it's, you know, like, so
well,
anyway.
because remember, running is one of the activities that spikes cortisol. And so when people come on, when people do my 30-day balancing, one of the things I tell them is, if you are a runner, absolutely not for the 30 days. Doesn't mean you can't go back to it, but our goal for these 30 days is balancing out that cortisol. So, and honestly, I don't know, Jeff, do you wash it down with beer after or no?
No. That's not why I'm not a beer drinker.
Just kidding. But running and jogging, and anything very intense will spike cortisol. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, except that if you're functioning at a very high level of it being out of balance, you want to balance it before you continue with that activity.
That's interesting. So
very interesting. So I have another question, Debbie, is that part of what you do is hypnosis?
Yes.
So we've had various different businesses on our show, never had a hypnotist in the hypnosis business, so I couldn't let that one slide. So I would love to know, what's it like to grow and build a hypnosis business, and where in the whole coaching and the wellness program does that fit?
Well, I will tell you, many years ago, 20 some odd years ago, I had a hypnosis practice in Glastonbury, Connecticut and Manchester, Connecticut. And about 60 to 70% of my clients were women who wanted to reduce weight. And then there were amongst other things. When I went out to Vegas in 2006, and I lived out in Nevada until 2021, I did not practice hypnosis unless it was for someone I personally knew. Why? Because when I went to inquire about getting the business license, the form was about this thick. Why? Because in Las Vegas, I mean, stage hypnotists are real. It's legitimate. However, because there are stage hypnotists in Vegas, the whole process for hypnosis was very different. Now that I'm back here, Elena, it is combined with the coaching and the wellness coaching. I use it for relaxation for my clients. I use it to do relaxation and then send them, because we do it over Zoom, send them the recording. It's also used for any kind of positive reinforcement or positive suggestion into the subconscious. So I would say I've been building it in conjunction with the book and the weight coaching, the wellness coaching.
I want to ask a question about, okay, so obviously there's been a lot in the news about Ozempic and its brethren. The pharma industry is notorious for wanting to keep people sick and just treat them forever, you know. And I'm curious to hear how you think about the fact that there's just such an industry around weight loss. There's such an industry around, you know, dieting, etc. I mean, like, you can't go out, you can't watch TV. Not that anybody watches TV live much, unless they're watching sports these days. But you can't see it. You can't watch without you know, advertising for weight loss programs, etc. Can you talk a little bit about the weight loss industry, dieting industry?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's enormous, and it always has been. Right now, and by the way, I record all my sports, so I can just. But, and I'm a huge sports fan. But right now, it really has centered in the last year or two on these drugs, if you will.
Yeah.
And in many cases, under a doctor's care for various reasons, they are very helpful. What is happening is every day I get another article about side effects. I mean, this is crazy. When I went for my colonoscopy, the doctor told me, we were talking for a while, and he said, you know, I just brought on 2 new doctors because all of these weight loss drugs have expanded my practice because everybody's having gastrointestinal side effects. So the offshoot of all of that is that my practice has exploded with patients because people are complaining about these issues. I don't believe that you need to use them. Like I said, if you're under a doctor's care, that, you know, more power to you. That's awesome. But if you're just doing it because, oh, this is a really good way, I'll take off I'll take off weight. But then what do you do?
Right.
If you stop the drugs, you gain the weight back. So what have you learned? I mean, we all know how to swallow a pill or take a shot or put a patch on. So
I'm going to build on that point, because I mean, like, a couple years ago, I lost probably 30 pounds. I've since put all the 30 pounds back on. and I know what the difference is. Like, I know that back then when I was losing that weight, like, I had so much more discipline about, like, what I was eating, how much I was eating salads instead of, you know, all the other crap that I like to eat, whatever. And I just was. And so what is the trick from your perspective? Maybe there's no trick. What is the sort of prescription for how do you make a change that is, you know, more permanent and isn't just, because I mean, like, this whole idea of yo-yo dieting, like, I mean,
right.
I have my pen because I'm going to write this down because I need to.
Okay, write this. That is a great question, because the key isn't even the taking off, it's the keeping off and having a lifestyle. So first of all, those first 30 days, as I said, there is a protocol for balancing the hormones. Then it's really reintroducing certain foods that you haven't had for those 30 days and really paying attention to how they relate to your body. So everybody is different. What I ultimately teach is an 80-20 lifestyle. 80% of the time, you're eating the foods you know work best for you, whatever that is. You want to call it eating clean, we call it eating on program. You can call it whatever you want. 20% of the time, you allow yourself, now that you have the knowledge, you allow yourself to have whatever it is that you want. Whether it's that pizza or whether it's, you know, the ice cream cone, or you're going on a cruise, or you're going on an all-inclusive vacation and you don't want to be, you know, you don't want to be thinking about it. You'll load your plate up with veggies. That's one thing. The crowding out some of the other stuff. You'll load your plate up with salad and veggies, but you'll still have a little dessert or whatever it is. And
just to be clear, Debbie, I'm just curious. When you say 20%, you're saying like 20% of the time, like X meals per week, or are we talking about 20%? And the 20% of every meal is pizza?
It depends. It depends on what you decide. So if you're going away for an all-inclusive week, That might be what you do. And when you get home, you spend a month or two just really focusing in. Because here's the thing, everybody, once you balance those hormones, particularly the cortisol, the weight isn't going to stay on. You may gain 3, 4, 5, 6 pounds on vacation because you've been drinking more, you've been having more sugar, you've been having more salt, but it's going to come right off as soon as you get back to your whatever you consider normal eating. So that's going to depend. For some people, Eric, it's a meal on the weekend. It's going out for dinner Saturday night and having whatever. For other people, it's Sunday, all day Sunday. Yep. For other people, it's once or twice a month because they know they're going to be away for the weekend. They don't want to think about it. But if you learn what works for you, then it makes it a lot easier. And the other two things are I walk every day and I drink half my body weight in ounces every day in plain water. Those are two things you can write down.
Right.
Jeff, you want to kick off the
yeah, I was just looking at these. So there's some weird ones here.
Here we go.
Would you prefer thought-provoking or absurd first?
Oh, I'm going to get both?
Yeah, one of each.
Let's do the absurd first.
I would say like 4 out of 5 dentists choose absurd first. So like, the absurd, I don't know, it's the most absurd one, but whatever. But I think this one's funny. It says, be honest. Do you ever fantasize about punching kale in the face?
I do.
I fantasize about never having it again.
What? Kale's had like a moment.
I am not. There is no way that you can eat kale unless you have dental floss.
Yeah.
So I'm not a huge kale fan. Sorry.
I'm with you. I feel like kale had a moment in the last several years, and I do not like it. My kids actually like kale chips, like when you crisp them.
Yeah.
Oh my God! But the apartment or house looks like a mess after that because they're everywhere.
But also read the ingredients.
Yeah.
Well, this is usually a homemade, but
homemade kale chips. Okay.
It's okay.
My wife did say, I'm not making kale chips today because the house just got cleaned. Because for example.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. I don't have to punch it. I just stay away from it.
Just do it. All right. So not your thing. All right. So the other one I wanted to ask you was, this is my thought-provoking. I think this is thought-provoking and absurd, but it says, which weighs more, a pound of muscle, a pound of fat, or the crushing pressure of society's expectation?
The crushing pressure.
No doubt.
That was what Elena started to talk about earlier.
Yes, and I'd love to go back to the crushing.
And you know something, and there's a chapter in my book because it's really disturbing to me. I understand about body shaming. I mean, I get it. I get the whole thing. But I also don't like seeing the trend we have now, which you don't need studies to show you that our kids are way overweight. And I have a real issue with, no, we shouldn't be body shaming anybody. But by the same token, you mentioned commercials, Eric. How about all the commercials you see on TV now with young kids who are being treated for diabetes?
Mm.
It's like, folks, we go from one extreme to the other, like we do with everything. Mm-hmm. We need to really get a handle on how we are leading by example, what we are showing our kids. And, you see it. You see the parents, the kids, and it's something that deeply disturbs me.
I have a question on this exact thought. What's wrong with average? Why is this society and as parents, do we not say to our children, whatever the average size is in America, that's where you should be. That's where good is.
Well,
all the way out there, not all the way the other way.
Well, the problem with the average size in America right now is it's probably too large.
Too high.
If you look at where our average weights have gone over the last 50 years, they have increased every 5 to 10 years on average. And I think we're just not, I don't know what we're doing. I mean, we still see the commercials, right? We still see start your morning with Frosted Flakes. And I sit there and I go, whole grain. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you actually kidding me that we're still giving our kids Frosted Flakes first thing in the morning? So I know you might be having them at night.
Yeah, that's my
He fights his kids for them.
Well, so it's interesting because I have such an interesting relationship with this because I spent almost 25 years as a food marketer working for probably some of your favorite companies, Nabisco, the Hershey Company, and Cracker Barrel, the restaurant company, none of which are like good for you foods.
I would take Hershey probably, but it's all in common sense. I mean, yeah, we have gone from, you know, everybody should look like a certain way to don't say anything about the way somebody looks.
Right.
So then there's no control over, these kids are not going to be healthy. Forget about looks. We're talking about health. We're talking about habits. We're talking about lifestyle later on. Why are teenagers getting type 1 diabetes? What is happening?
Well,
so
I think there's a lot of there's been a shift in recent decades, maybe not even further out, onto the quality of food. Food convenience is a huge problem. I mean, now we're finding out that like microplastics are everywhere. I have no idea how that is affecting people.
Well, you also throw in the pandemic, right? Because all bets were off during pandemic.
That's right. Although
so I think there's a societal problem, and we tend to be really bad at dealing with societal problems in at least this US society. And unfortunately, it seems like instead of Europe being a good role model, there just seems to be shifting in our direction in terms of weights, etc. I don't know how that's affecting other parts.
In some cases, yes. In other cases, Europe is still way ahead of us. In, you know, the people I know who are gluten sensitive here and don't touch it can eat all the bread they want in Italy. So again, we are here, you're right. We are not necessarily dealing with the situation in the same way, but you know.
Yeah. Well, but it's interesting though. Like I used to say when I worked, you know, Elena and I met, we were working, Elena was my boss at Nabisco like many, many years ago, that we don't ever say the amount of years, but, but I remember like, you know, there were all these, you know, health and wellness initiatives and whatever. And I'm like, it is not true that in the 1950s, like before all this, you know, sort of weight and obesity issues came out, that people didn't realize that Oreo cookies made you, you know, like, we're not healthy for you. Like they knew that, right? So I would argue like that was probably not the problem is not the existence of Oreo cookies, right? It's the way we eat, like in general, more broadly. And I think a lot of it, so we worked, you know, at the time, Nabisco was owned by Kraft Foods. And I actually think really the much more problematic parts of Kraft Foods were like the convenient meals, like the macaroni and cheese dinners and whatever. Like it's not the junk food. Like everybody knew that junk food was junk food. Like, you know, it was this, you know, all this stuff, to Eric's point about, can be like the convenience.
That's
food.
right.
Like all the salt and the sugar and all the stuff that goes into making something that basically sits in a freezer for like, you know, 2 years or whatever, like be palatable is going to lead to you know, eating it. But I also think, I don't know, you would know better than I do. I would not be surprised. I think that's actually impacted even the food in the restaurants that you go to. Like it's so much saltier. It's so much more, you know, like and so we just like our whole tastes have kind of shifted to this need for like constant salt.
Well, when we watch, first of all, there is nothing inherently wrong with Oreo. First of all, there is nothing inherently wrong with any food. Food isn't good or bad, but You're absolutely right. There is nothing inherently wrong with having a couple Oreo cookies, but my son was raised on Kraft macaroni and cheese. Thank you very much. So he's a runner now. He's running the New York Marathon in November. But it is the convenience factor. And it all started, my mom worked in the 60s and 70s, Swanson TV dinners. I mean, the convenience of that. And then, of course, we have McDonald's and Happy Meals and that whole thing that parents have been able to. And again, it's paying attention. What do you eat most of the time is the question.
Well, actually, one thing that I have to say, which comes up for me, because my kids actually like when I make, or at least they used to, maybe not so much anymore, but they used to like when I made mac and cheese, homemade mac and cheese.
Homemade mac and cheese.
And I'm like, the number of steps to make homemade mac and cheese are really not that many more than the number of steps to make boxed mac and cheese.
That's right. And we all see it. If we watch the Food Network, if we watch Guy and the rest of them, you always see sugar going in whatever's being made. Right. Everything.
That reminds me of this friend of my wife and mine that had gone to cooking school, and he said the first thing they teach you about restaurant cooking is everything you know about butter. Forget it. Like, put as much butter in everything as you want, or more.
And butter's gotten a little bit of a bad rap, but I was raised on freaking Fleischmann's margarine. That stuff is evil. So, like I said, butter's gotten a little bit of a bad rap.
Trans fat out of most of the margarines, right? Or I don't know if they did, but at least that was.
We've just gotten so far away from, protecting the soil, just the way food is in and of itself. And, we're not going to fix that, but we certainly can make choices, and we don't have time to get into it here, but not everybody has the same availability of the same foods, fruits and vegetables. I mean, there are no apples on the counter. There's candy. So people don't have the same availability. Now you go in and you want to buy organic, and you're paying 3 times as much. And the Costco thing is great. I shop in Costco all the time, but try walking out of Costco. I saw something on Facebook that said, I saved $358 by not buying blueberries at Costco. That is exactly. Try getting out of there for less than $100. It's impossible. So, again, we talk about not everybody has the same availability. And then we talk about culture and tradition. What about foods that are steeped in tradition and steeped in culture that aren't necessarily the most healthy? That's fine. But it's understanding how to enjoy those and still have a healthy lifestyle. So it's very complex. And that's not even putting the politics in it. That's just everything else.
Absolutely.
But I think there's a large profit motive angle here. It's like, let's throw as much salt into that bag of potato chips I was talking about as we can, so that you eat the whole bag, so that there's.
And then there are GLP-1s to fix it all. Not to worry.
Right. Well, yeah, but we went through the whole fat-free craze, the sugar-free craze. So there was no sugar, but there was twice as much fat. And it's all marketing, obviously, huge profit motive behind it. And really, people just have to educate themselves. I mean, buy my book.
Absolutely.
So that's a good lead into the fact that we are 34 minutes into our 30-minute podcast. So we, at this point in the podcast, we always like to go around and leave the audience with one thing. As I like to joke with our guests, I always make the guest go first, so you have no time to think about what you're going to say. I usually go last, which sounds like it could be a good thing, but actually, usually somebody says the thing I was going to say. So anyway, Debbie, what is one thing you would like to leave our audience with?
just that it is possible to enjoy life and find peace with food and be healthy and maintain your ideal weight without drugs.
Awesome. Well, Debbie, I will go next, but before I do that, I have two things I want to do. The first one is, can you tell us a little bit about when's your book coming out? Is there a date? Where can people find it? And where can they find information about your book?
Okay, the book should be out in about 3 weeks. I don't have an exact date yet. Dietingsucksbook.com. The book is called Dieting Sucks for Women Over 40, 30 to Life, the Ultimate Weight Loss and Hormone Balancing Solution. And yeah, if you go there and give me your email address, you're not going to be bombarded, but you will find out when the launch is. So thank you.
Awesome. And then the second question is, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
I am happy. I'm all over social media. I'm on LinkedIn every day, but I'm happy to receive emails at Debbie, DEBBIE, at mainstreet.com. Main Street is spelled with a Y, MAYNESTREET.com. Happy to hear from anyone. Questions, whatever you got.
Awesome. Well, thank you. This has been really very educational, very informative. And I guess, sort of the obvious point that isn't so obvious, which is the point that you made, is like, it's all about how you eat most of the time.
Right.
And I think that's the tricky thing, is it's so easy to get kind of like, okay, how do you get in that mindset of like, I cross the line, and therefore I'm like, throw the whole diet in the like out the window, as opposed to, no, this is part of the way I eat, right? This is the
way. And that chapter is called Down the Rabbit Hole.
Oh, awesome. I feel like the book for 50-year-old men needs to come out now.
Yeah, I've had a few men ask me that question, so I may have to do that. Yeah.
Awesome. Elena, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Yeah, so I'm going next. Well, first of all, I'm very glad that there are people like you, Debbie, and people like you, Jeff, who have something really good to say and who are not afraid to go ahead and say it and say, you know what, the world needs to hear this from me because I'm onto something. So that's awesome. So here's for you too. As far as what I actually thought as I was listening to you is the fact that we all should take responsibility, right? Take responsibility for saying 80-20 in my eating, for researching what might be throwing me off, for not doing it or saying, I am stuck. Let me see how to figure it out. As opposed to Oreos are bad, orange juice is bad, whatever's on TV is bad, that kind of stuff. So that was my takeaway.
Perfect.
Yeah. And Elena, you and I still have to write a book together just so we could join that club, right?
Right. So we can fit in here. Yeah.
There's one, actually I have two things. One is, Debbie, you said something earlier that there is no food that's really bad. Like there are probably some really like Takis, maybe like.
No food. See, people do that. They say, I was bad today. I ate X. Food is not good or bad. Yeah. There's no value judgment on food.
Okay. So my one thing is really this concept that we got into, this the complexity of the profit motive and societal standards, the fact that we've went so far down that capitalist sort of direction that we've forgotten that there's actually people and people's health that is out there and impacted. I think that is something that hopefully we'll see some adjustment. Not sure in the current political climate that that's something I'm hoping to see in the next couple of years, but maybe down the road we'll come out with something that is less about all body shaming is bad, therefore let's not ever talk about weight kind of thing, but I'm not disputing that body shaming is bad, but to something that maybe is a little more productive overall. Anyway, Debbie, this was a fantastic episode. It was really great to chat with you. Learned a lot. I think maybe even something that will help me to lose weight in the future, maybe I'll just reach out to you and ask questions. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Really excited. Congratulations in advance on your book launch.
Thank you, Jeff.
Awesome.